Well, hello there everyone, and welcome to another UXW Bill product review video. It seems as though I've been making a lot of these as of late, and I've got to be honest with you, right now it happens that I have an awful lot of stuff going on, and even more stuff on my mind. I don't particularly feel like making a product review video right now, but as it happens, the folks that supply the products for me to review from time to time, if I don't do it in a relatively timely fashion, they will, and justifiably so, get to be a little bit irritated with me. As per usual, this is a sponsored product review. I received the product at no cost. However, as with all of my product review videos, I only review products on the condition that I am allowed to be completely honest with regard to my findings. Whether they're good, bad, or ugly, I will do my best to tell you exactly how it is to the best of my ability. So let's see what we have for review today. This is from the nice folks at Topdon Tools. This is their TC004 handheld thermal imaging camera. Now, I have been curious about these for many years. There are certainly many well-established brands out there today selling their own offerings, but I have never actually used one of these until now. But before we get into experimenting with this, we'll shoo the sweat bee away, and we'll just take a look at some of the things that happen to be on the box. If you are interested in reading any of the packaging, I'll hold the box still, and you should feel free to pause the video if you would like. So here on the top, we have a picture of both the front and the back of the imager, the model number, a description of what it is, the company name, all those things, just exactly what you would expect. This is a pretty nice package. A lot of high quality printing, nice glossy finish to the cardboard. I mean, honestly, who really cares about all that? Because for most people, this is going to end up being discarded or recycled, hopefully. But here we are looking at some of the specifications on the side panel of the box. The camera claims a 256 by 192 pixel resolution. Has a 2.8-inch display screen, a measurement range of between -4 to 662 degrees Fahrenheit, or -20 to 350 degrees Celsius. You can project the image to the PC if you would like. I plan to actually try that a little bit later in the video. You can also analyze images, and rather interestingly, this particular camera supports video recording. Now, a lot of these cameras that I have looked at in the past, although they can take still pictures, I have yet to come across one like this model that supports video recording. There's also a number of specifications down here in the fine print. Most of these are simply a repeat of what's on the top, but they do mention a measurement resolution of 0.1 degrees Celsius. They claim that the camera has 2 gigabytes of RAM, a storage capacity of 16 gigabytes. However, I believe that is only available by way of using external memory, which is actually included with the camera. They also claim that the battery has a 5,000 milliampere capacity, and despite the measurement temperature, the working temperature is given as 14 to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, or -10 to 50 degrees Celsius. You can also contact Topdon Technology Limited. They have a website, a worldwide telephone number, a North American telephone number, an email address, and they even go so far as to give an address. Of course, there's a barcode, serial number, number of regulatory compliance symbols. Each side of the box simply has the Topdon brand name on it. And then the other panel on the box says that this is the TC004 handheld thermal imaging camera. So let's go ahead and pop the box open and see what you get. So now I've opened the box, and right at the very top there's a soft padded carrying case. Honestly, I would have preferred to see a hard shell carrying case, or maybe even an option, because I think that in some of the roles where you might use a product like this, that a hard shell carrying case would be a better choice. We also have a product certificate that tells us this was manufactured on January 13th of 2023. Tells us who inspected it, what the model number is, as well as the serial number. And then at the bottom it proudly declares that this product has been inspected. I'm glad to know that. I'm sure you are as well. Here's a calibration certificate that states the instrument has been calibrated by way of instrumentation that can be traced back to that of the National Institution of Standards and Technology. There is a user's manual. This is pretty brief. It's written in several languages, which is why it's as thick as it happens to be. It covers the basics, but doesn't go into a tremendous amount of detail. Then we have a USB-A to C type cable. This can not only be used to charge the camera, but also to exchange data with a personal computer. And somewhere down in here, they provide a case with a 16 gigabyte Kioxia, I believe that says Xeria, micro SD card. You can pop that into the camera, and you can use that to store images, movies, other things. And then there is this little charging cube. This is rated to output 5 volts at up to 3 amps. I have no doubt that it is legitimately capable of it. This thing is very heavy and feels very well made. It works around the world, 100 to 240 volts, 50 to 60 cycles per second. And then we have the actual camera itself. You see the screen right there, still has the protector on it. We have a playback button, there's a flashlight button, a 4-way control pad that lets you navigate the various menus and whatnot. There's a backwards pointing arrow that allows you to exit a menu. There's also a power button. Here on the front, you have the LED lamp, 2 cameras, one for infrared and one for visible light. There's also a trigger that is used to either take still pictures, or if you press and hold it, you can make a movie. But let's go ahead and power up the camera. Now, as you've probably noticed, I'm here in the great outdoors, working on the back of my truck bed with the tailgate down as a set for recording this video. And someone's dog just ran away from them. You can't make this stuff up. So if you're wondering what that commotion was in the background, yep, we've got a dog running around. So there you have it, folks. Some of the hazards of making videos with the great outdoors as a set. Fortunately for anyone in the viewing audience who happens to be wondering, yes, the gentleman got his dog back. The dog actually saw another dog that's been wandering around here all day long and managed to snap the leash. And I don't know who the other dog belongs to, but I certainly hope that its owners find it safe and well. Let's get back to the product review. I've gone ahead and taken the camera out of the box, set everything aside. Part of the reason I wanted to work here in the great outdoors has to do with the fact that I'm curious how well the display screen on this camera happens to work when you are operating it in direct sunlight. Now here on the top we have the connection points for the USB-C cable as well as the included memory card. I really appreciate the fact that they included that memory card. I think the way I'm going to do this product review, we'll certainly test the camera, we'll point it at some things that are hot, we'll point it at some things that are cold, we'll point it at some things that are 3 days old and covered with mold. No, we won't do that. I promise we won't do that. But we will point it at some things that are both hot and cold, and we'll just see what kind of an accounting the camera gives of itself. Just as soon as I can get the micro SD card in place here. But I'm thinking the way that I want to go with this will be to do a relatively brief review today and then check in again at some point in the future after I've used this camera for an extended period of time to tell you how it's held up and how well I happen to think that it works over a longer period of time. We'll go ahead and power it up. You can see how long it takes to start up. It signs on identifying itself as TC View. I will look at the images and movies that it records to see if it gives any idea as to what software and hardware might be running this thing behind the scenes. It says, see more than the human eye can. System is initializing. This display is actually very readable out here in the sunlight. I'm impressed. And the camera is up and running. We have a couple of different crosshair style cursors. We also have a bar graph over here that is shaded from dark to light. This indicates the minimum temperature, which is presently 78 degrees, and the maximum temperature as the camera has detected it, which is hovering right around 140 degrees. The currently detected temperature is shown in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, and the information concerning the minimum and maximum temperatures are again repeated also at the upper left-hand corner of the screen. On the right hand of the screen at the top, we have a battery life indicator, and then down at the lower left we have the emissivity setting. Now, I do not claim to be an expert on these sort of things. In fact, I may not even have pronounced that correctly, but you can certainly research that online if you'd like to know more about it. To press the center button in the control pad leads us to a quick list of options. There's the measurement method, center spot, hot spot, cold spot, tells us what the various crosshairs mean, and allows us to close that particular menu and turn those functions off. If we press the backward pointing arrow, the next thing you can choose is a color palette. It defaults to one known as iron, but you can also choose one that says black hot, white hot. Presumably in the case of white hot, white indicates the hottest points that the camera is sensing. In the case of black hot, the hottest points will be black in color. The iron scheme uses brighter colors to indicate greater temperature. And then finally there is a rainbow scheme that is somewhat similar to that of the iron scheme. I tend to like the iron color scheme, so I think that's the one we'll stick with. Then there are also the system settings. You can go in here to set up your measurement parameters, the emissivity setting, the temperature, the distance from which you're measuring. You can choose the temperature scale, set a high-low alert, adjust settings concerning photos, whether or not they're auto-saved. It doesn't look like you get to choose any particular quality. There's a temperature unit setting that allows you to choose between degrees Celsius, degrees Fahrenheit, and Kelvin, if you happen to use that particular system. You can also set the clock on the unit, as I have gone ahead and done. You can choose the language, display brightness, whether or not the system auto powers off after a period of inactivity. I set it to 20 minutes. That seemed like a good value to me. And then finally, there are system settings. You can gather device information, perform a factory reset, format the SD card, and choose the mode in which the USB port operates. It can operate as a mass storage device, i.e. a disk that you plug into your computer and simply look at the files, or it can operate as a camera. Since the SD card is brand new and I just went ahead and popped it in, I'm sure some of you are going completely OCD about this not being closed up here, so let's close that. And then we'll go ahead and we'll format the SD card. It asks us if we'd like to continue. We'll say yes, it's already highlighted, so we'll just press the center button. And it tells us seconds later, not even a second later really, that the format succeeded. And now we should be able to take a picture of something in my truck bed, like say that wheel well. You'll notice there was a brief pause. I believe that happens because the sensor within the camera is actually recalibrating itself. Let's go ahead and take a picture. There we go. It took a picture, saved it to a file. We could now recall that and view it on a computer if we wanted to do so. To clear the screen, we press the backward pointing arrow. Then, of course, I can hold down the power button and the camera will shut down. With all of that said, let's go point this at some things that are hot and cold and see what happens. Here we are looking at the engine compartment in my pickup truck. The engine is actually running right now so that various things will be hot and cold as appropriate. I have the thermal imaging camera powered up, and if we bring it into the camera's field of view, you can see that certain things, like the alternator that we're looking at right now, are quite warm, whereas other things, like the heater hoses over there, are also glowing brilliantly, and the air conditioning filter dryer is quite dark in color because it's very cool. Now right now I'm going to depress the trigger on the thermal imaging camera. It has started to record a movie. I do not have to hold the button down continuously. The movie will continue to record. And if my video editing software finds the files output by the thermal imaging camera to be palatable, I will include them along with this review video so that you can see what it saw. I am somewhat curious if it happens to record sound. So bring the camera back into the field of view here so you can see it. It's not only refrigeration-related tasks that can benefit from the use of a thermal imaging camera, but also certain electrical repairs and of course other uses that are limited only by your imagination. Basically, if you're looking to find anything that is hot or particularly cold, especially relative to other objects in the area, you can certainly use this camera to find it. We're looking at the electrical panel in a home right now that is being severely remodeled, which is why this is in the mess that it's in. And of course the power is actually onto this panel. Certain things are consuming electricity through it. Let's see if maybe we can see which circuits might happen to be in use right now. The circuits that are in use will actually look hotter compared to the ones that aren't. Likewise, if it happened that there was some kind of a marginal connection or a wiring related issue that was causing excessive heat to build up, you could definitely use this camera to find it. Now, since you can't really see anything by way of the video camera right now, I'm going to go ahead and record another video and just sort of pan this thing slowly up and down the electrical panel. And again, if at all possible, I will certainly insert this into the video. Here are two pans of water sitting on a stove top. One is hot, one is cold. Here again, we'll bring the thermal imaging camera in, and while you can't see its screen particularly well due to the hazards of the automatic exposure control on the camcorder, here again I'll turn on the movie mode, point it at the pot of hot water. Now you will better be able to see the effect with the pan full of cold water, because you can see that about at the middle portion of the screen that the display has turned dark at the point where the water is coolest. I got my video clip. I'll tell it that I want to save the recording. And there we go. Another fun thing that you can do with a thermal imaging camera involves playing the game known as Find the Ghost. Here we have a chair. I wonder if there was a ghost sitting in it by chance. Well, let's just see what the thermal imaging camera shows us. Yes, it definitely looks like there was something there in recent times. With the Topdon TC004 model imaging camera, you also get a standard threaded tripod mount, which means, of course, that it's no problem at all to attach the Topdon thermal imaging camera to anything that can work with a standard threaded tripod mount. So now, let's see how the thermal imaging camera happens to perform when I've pointed it at the central air conditioning condensing unit at my parents' home. I'm hoping that what we'll see is a temperature differential across the condenser coil. We'll probably also see the heat that's being exhausted by the fan in the top of the unit, as well as the heat produced by the electric motor as it operates. Everything that you have just watched was recorded in July of 2023. Now it's October of 2023, and in the time that has passed, I have puttered around a little bit with the connectivity options offered by the Topdon TC004 thermal imaging camera. The best I can say for any of them is that they are extremely half-baked at best and unusable at the worst. The software that they provide, maybe I need to spend more time with it, maybe I don't completely understand how to utilize it yet. The instruction manual is certainly of no help, nor is the included documentation with the software. I found it completely incomprehensible and opaque. As far as computer connectivity goes, there are two modes of operation. There is a file storage mode of operation, and then there is a USB video class camera mode of operation. Neither one of these works 100% correctly. When you plug this in the file transfer mode, if your operating system cares about such things, it will tell you that there are errors on the internal storage and you should scan for and correct them. Of course, none are actually found. My guess is that when you power off the camera, it simply shuts down too quickly for all of the disk storage and the external storage memory to be properly synchronized. Whether this could lead to eventual corruption on the contents of your memory card, I really can't say for sure, but it's definitely an example of sloppy programming and poor quality checking when it comes to the firmware. There has been a firmware update released for this camera. I have since applied it, and I have found that it does not correct any of the previously identified issues in this review as concerns the video recording mode or the frame rate. Both of those are still set in a PAL mode with a 25 frame per second recording rate, and there's nothing you can do to change that if you live in a country where 30 frames per second or NTSC or some variant thereof is actually the standard that you would normally use. As far as the USB video class camera mode of operation, this too is definitely not as reliable as it ought to be. In fact, I have found its functionality to be essentially unusable on anything other than Linux-based devices. A Windows computer and a Macintosh computer were both aware of the fact that a USB video class camera was attached, but at no point was I actually able to get an image to display. A Chrome OS, or internally Linux device, was actually, after a little bit of puttering around and a few camera mode swaps, able to produce video reliably from this camera. So if you're thinking of buying this and planning to use it with a personal computer, my recommendation would be simply to look elsewhere. There are just too many issues with this product's communication capabilities for me to even remotely recommend it. But if all you want is a standalone thermal imaging camera and you don't care about taking pictures or videos or anything like that, then I would provisionally recommend this, but I would certainly advise you to shop around and maybe look at some of the other options on the market. I'm happy that they were kind enough to send this to me at no cost. They'll probably also be happy that months later I'm finally getting around to finishing this review, but they may very well not like what I had to say in closing. However, as always, these videos are intended to be completely honest, and I always make that perfectly clear to the companies that provide the products. If what they want me to produce is some sort of sponsorship material where I only extol the virtues of the product, I'll do that, but I'm going to clearly mark it as such. Finally, in closing, for those of you who are curious, this appears to be a Linux-based device internally. I'm not exactly sure upon whose integrated circuitry it is based, but many of the USB functions enumerate as various virtual USB devices that can be created by a Linux operating system to communicate with an attached host. And while again, I have not had this open to look inside and see what's within it, I have come to believe that the microprocessor system on chip is probably from the Chinese cellular phone giant Huawei. Anyway, this review has gone on for quite a while now. That's really all there is to say. Again, if you're looking for a standalone camera, This really isn't a bad choice. It seems to do a fine job, but if you're interested in any of the additional capabilities that are offered by way of connecting this to a computer, I would definitely look elsewhere. And if anyone from Topdon happens to be watching this, please go over your firmware, sand down the rough edges, make it work the way it's supposed to. There's localization bugs, there's USB bugs, and the whole thing just kind of smacks of very sloppy programming. It's not a very polished user experience, and please, get a native speaker to write the messages for the user interface in whatever language they are being presented in. Everyone who uses this device will thank you, and there's no excuse for not having done a better job of that considering what this thing costs. As always, I'm interested in your constructive commentary, so thank you for watching if you made it this far, and I'll certainly be interested in hearing what you and the viewing audience have to say.